So my name is David Snowpeck. I'm a freelance Drupal developer. I'm also one of the co-maintainers of Panopoly and 20-ish or so other projects on Drupal.org. I also co-organize the Drupal meetup in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So if you are in Wisconsin or near Wisconsin, I invite you to come join us. We have the best food at any meetup ever. The lead organizer, he home cooks just like tons of food and brings it to every meetup. Len can attest.
Absolutely.
So, so if you just want to, get out to Milwaukee and have a good meal, it's worth it just for that. So we've been at MidCamp all day talking about Drupal. What are some of the types of sites that you can build with Drupal? So government portals, what else? University websites.
Blogs.
Personal blog, yeah. I got a couple of those on here. E-commerce store, internal collaboration tools, social networking sites, making your own YouTube. Really, the possibilities are unlimited. I'm not really aware of a type of site that you couldn't build with Drupal. I mean, there's other concerns that sometimes make other platforms more viable, but like for the most part, I don't know any class of site you couldn't build. But what does Drupal give you out of the box when you install it? Who here has installed Drupal 7? Or at least seen what it looks like immediately after install? Yeah, so if you haven't seen it, you get this blue thing, which is sort of a simple blog with a not very good content editing experience. The thing is, nobody really wants this thing. When you're hoping and dreaming about your new website, you're not thinking of this. This does not meet any client requirements document ever. You couldn't take this live. It's basically a blank slate. And it's up to you to go through the 24,000 Drupal modules on Drupal.org, find the ones you need, install them, and configure them. And that's the power of Drupal, right? All those modules, there's anything you want to do, there's a module for it. You can do amazing things without writing code and just installing modules, but that work is up to you. What most people actually want is something that kind of feels like a website. This screenshot is from Open Public. It's a Drupal distribution for building websites for local governments. And when you install it, you get a website for local governments with demo data. If you went through here and just replaced like my example city with the actual name of your local government, you could go live with that in a matter of hours. People want the core functionality that they need for their site. This screenshot is from Commerce Kickstart. When you install Commerce Kickstart, you get a full e-commerce store with product catalogs, checkout, shopping cart, all that stuff. It's built on Drupal Commerce, which is a fleet of Drupal modules for making, infinitely flexible e-commerce systems, not just, stores with products. But, it's so much easier to install something and modify it to what you need rather than starting from scratch and building it up, at least for when you're getting started. If you're already an expert in Drupal Commerce, that story would be a little bit different. In short, people want something as close as possible to their end goal out of the box. If you're launching an e-commerce store, you want to be thinking about the products that you're going to be offering, the deals you're going to be doing, not implementing basic shopping cart functionality. If you're launching a personal blog, you want to be thinking about the articles you're going to be writing, not basic, comments and Wysiwyg and all that stuff. You want to focus on the unique value proposition of your site. And if you work at an organization with dozens of sites, or you're a freelance Drupal site builder or work at an agency and you're building sites every day, there's probably some configuration that you do on every new site. Wouldn't it be great if Drupal just came that way when you installed it? So this is where Drupal distributions come in. Who here is familiar with the idea of a Drupal distribution? A couple of people. Who's actually installed a Drupal distribution? Any of them? Cool. For those who don't know, a Drupal distribution is basically Drupal prepackaged with a bunch of contrib modules and themes, and when you install it, it comes up with some purpose. Installs just like Drupal, but it does something. And the great thing is it still is Drupal. So if the distribution does X, but you really need X plus Y, you can still dig into that pool of 24,000 Drupal modules, add what you need, customize it, change it. Here are some popular open source distributions. We already talked about Commerce Kickstart and Open Public. Open Atrium, it's a distribution for internal collaboration. So have discussions within departments, assign tasks to each other, have a shared calendar. Drupal Commons, if you wanted to make an online community, have your own Facebook. Open Academy, university department websites. Julio, school and high school websites. Demo Framework, Brantwin isn't here right now, but he's at the event. He's the maintainer of Demo Framework. Anyway, this is a really interesting case. Demo Framework is a distribution that Acquia made as a sales tool. When they go to a new client and try to sell them on the idea of using Drupal, they don't show up with Drupal 7 out of the box. They take this distribution instead, which has a whole bunch of the common modules that people would enable, the sort of things you would see on a fully built-out Drupal site. Drupal for internal project management and customer relationship management. So if you had a Drupal agency and wanted to manage all of your internal projects using a Drupal site, you could. And Panopoly, which is going to be the main topic of today's presentation. So those were some public open source distributions that anybody can download. There's also lots of people who have made internal distributions. Here are a couple of big examples, but who knows how many other people have made internal distributions just to make their lives easier. They're under no obligation to let us know. And these are some big names, but even small to medium-sized organizations can benefit from having an internal distribution. As a freelance developer, I've created internal distributions for a number of small organizations. So here are some of the reasons that you might want to create one. If you're a Drupal shop, you don't make completely unique websites every time. You probably operate in some niche. So you can make an internal distribution that does that same sort of configuration you do every time to come up on install. If you have lots of sites,
What's the difference between that if you just show up in a thing, or is it the same thing with different language?
So a theme, that's like you can take all of the functionality of a Drupal site and switch the way it looks. And most distributions include a theme, right? But a distribution is like you install Drupal and it already has all these modules installed, it already has them configured in a particular way, it already has your theme set up. So it's like a build out of a site, but it happens automatically on install. So in this case, if you have a lot of sites or you know that you're going to be launching new sites all the time, you can put the stuff that you want on every new site into a distribution, and when it comes time to create a new site, you just launch a new one of those. Comes out of the box with everything you need. So an alternative to making a distribution would be just copying sites, right? Like if you make one site and then you're about to launch a second site and you're like, oh, that has most of the features we need, so we'll copy it, we'll clone it, and then make changes. Now you have these common pieces of functionality on both sites. If you want to change that common functionality, now you have to log into both sites and change it twice, which might be workable for 2 sites, but not for 10 sites or 100 sites. So an advantage of using a distribution rather than cloning is you can actually make updates to the distribution itself and redeploy to all of your sites, and they'll all get updated too. So what is Panopoly? Panopoly is actually at least 3 different things, which makes it a little difficult to explain and certainly more difficult for us to develop. One of those is it is a distribution itself. You can download it off of Drupal.org, install it, and it's a starter distribution. It's a blank slate, just like Drupal 7 is, but it's an improved blank slate. There's a whole bunch of usability improvements. We add things that a lot of people want, like Wysiwyg, media support, responsive layouts, and then some panel stuff we'll talk about later. The other thing, and probably the more innovative thing, is that it's also a base distribution. Who here is familiar with the idea of a base theme? So, what are some advantages of using a base theme rather than building a theme from scratch?
If you're like me, you suck at design.
Yeah, maybe you suck at design and the base theme already is a little bit, better.
Some of the common markup that you're going to put in there, or some common CSS
Mm-hmm.
already dealt with.
Yeah, it already makes some decisions about approach and maybe does some things that are sensible, taking Drupal from its a little bit outdated design to maybe a more modern style design. Yeah, being able to take advantage of this shared work. And the advantages of using a base distribution are pretty much the same. Panopoly handles a whole lot of the low-level details, sets up this framework that you will put your specific additions into. And we'll talk a bit more about that during the demo stage. Yeah?
Getting back to point one,
Mm-hmm.
to what extent is the added value of Panopoly going to be incorporated into Drupal 8?
So a lot of the stuff that Panopoly adds is from Drupal 8. So the theme that we install when you install Panopoly is Responsive Bartik. It's a backport of the default theme in Drupal 8. The toolbar module that Panopoly installs is a backport of the toolbar module in Drupal 8. There will be Wysiwyg support in Drupal 8. We also have Wysiwyg pre-configured. So, Panopoly for Drupal 8 will have less stuff in it. I think there probably will still need to be a Panopoly for Drupal 8, though. We'll see.
Okay.
And the third thing, who here is familiar with the features module? Who here has ever actually made a feature? Cool. So the features module allows you to take some of the stuff that you did in Drupal, like the point-and-click work that you do in the admin interface, and pull that into a custom module. And then you can enable that custom module on another site, and it will set up all of that configuration. So it's a way of taking configuration and reusing it. Panopoly is also a collection of about a dozen modules, features modules, for each of the different pieces of functionality in Panopoly. So we have a Panopoly Wysiwyg module that does all of the Wysiwyg stuff in Panopoly, and you can take any of those modules and put them on a normal Drupal 7 site. So it doesn't have to be Panopoly. If you just want to take Panopoly's Wysiwyg and use it on your vanilla Drupal 7 site, you can. Just grab that module, run its makefile, install it. So we'll see a whole lot more of this when we get to the demo portion. But I just want to go over some of the user experience principles of Panopoly, since user experience is one of the main drivers for Panopoly. Do the obvious things out of the box, like the things that everybody is already doing. So like, disable the overlay module. Adding a filter box to the module list page. I mean, we could argue about which module we should use to filter the modules page, but I think we all agree that that's better. It's objectively better. Replacing the admin content page with the one from admin views. I don't know anyone who prefers the stock one. So just all the basic stuff that everyone's already doing to improve their UX out of the box. Keeping users and site managers on the front end rather than the back end. We don't want people digging through the admin interfaces of Drupal, changing something, not really knowing what it does, and then having to go back to the front end to actually see it. So editing things where they're displayed rather than on the back end. Keeping Drupalisms behind the scenes. So we try to make it so that any internet literate user would be able to understand the different concepts that they have to work with in order to customize their site. And that applies to users and site managers, right? If you're the site builder or you're a developer, you're still stuck with Drupalisms. But you shouldn't need to know what a view is, a block is, a panel, in order to do the basic kind of customization that we want to allow users to do. Yeah, and try to show previews, live previews, Wysiwyg, wherever possible, because clients really respond to being able to see what they're doing rather than manipulating something in the back end, going to like the admin structured blocks page and changing something there. Who knows what it does? You click save and nothing happens. So I added this slide kind of at the last minute, but I wanted to get this out of the way right away because there are a lot of strong feelings about panels. Who here has used panels before? Who here loves panels? Who here hates panels? Who here has mixed feelings about panels? Cool. So I used to be in the hating panels camp, because I'm a developer, right? And to me, panels is just another pointy, clicky thing. And I don't want to be using pointy, clicky things. I want to be writing code. And a lot of users and site builders don't like panels because it's complicated. There's a whole bunch of new concepts you have to learn. There's a learning curve. The page manager, which is the default interface for working with panels, is really confusing. So it gets kind of a bad rap in the community. Panopoly is what eventually led me to love panels because it uses it in a very specific way. We include not just panels, but the best of the panels ecosystem. So like a half dozen other modules that build on it, that extend it. If your only experience with panels is panels and the page manager, what we're going to see in Panopoly will not be familiar to you. It will be different. So yeah, Panelizer, fieldable panel panes, the panels IP, some of the extensions. And we try to hide all of the nasty things in panels from users, mainly the page manager. The golden rule is that users will never see the page manager. They'll use an alternate interface called the IP, which we'll see a whole lot of in the demo portion. And using panels in this way allows you to create really amazing experiences for your clients without necessarily writing code. If you're a site builder, you can use views, you can use fieldable panel panes, which really just means entities and fields, and create really cool new experiences, things specific to your client without doing any code, and there's also lots of stuff for developers too. All right, so let's start talking about some of the actual features of Panopoly. It'll be a mix of slides and live demo. So the first thing that Panopoly does is it installs a whole bunch of contrib modules, super popular contrib modules. If you've done any site building in the past, you probably recognize most of the modules on this list, views, path auto, jQuery update, module filter. Some of the ones you might not recognize are some of the middle ones that are panels stuff. Fake, it's another panels thing. It allows you to edit fields like from a panel page. You get like a little context menu and you can click edit. Anyway. So it installs all these modules by default and keeps them up to date. So when a new version comes out, we'll test it, make sure it works with everything else, and make a new release of Panopoly. Same for security releases. So any of the modules that Panopoly installs, you no longer have to worry about them. If there's patches to important bugs, we'll include them. If there's patches required to make them work together, we'll make sure those get in there. We'll manage some of the complex conflicts, like the media module. Getting that to work with Wysiwyg can be hit or miss. We make sure that the versions we include will all work together. So if you use Panopoly, you don't have to worry about this. We got you. Layouts. So every website has to deal with layouts somehow. All websites use a couple of different layouts. The traditional way to provide layouts in Drupal is through the theme system, but there's a whole bunch of other ways you can do it. Context and blocks, panels, of course. Panopoly uses panels. And through panels, we provide you out of the box with all of these layouts. They're all responsive, cross-browser tested. They'll work in most themes. And users can arbitrarily switch between them and move different pieces of content from region to region, all Wysiwyg style in real time on the page that they're looking at. And I'll show you that right now. So this is a fresh install of Panopoly 1.2. When you're doing the install, it gives you the option of installing the Panopoly demo module, which puts all of this extra demo content on there. If you disable the Panopoly demo module, it removes the content. So there's really no harm in enabling it. I have to log in. Hang on. So the panels IP, which I've been talking about so much, adds these two buttons down here at the bottom. I'm going to click Change This Layout. It gives me the same set of layouts you saw on my previous slide. This one's selected. Let's switch to the sidebar on the left. We've gone from the sidebar on the right to the sidebar on the left. This page is already live. Done. Users can move the different widgets to the different regions by clicking Customize This Page. Let's grab this demo content widget and put it in the sidebar. you'll notice that the image was much bigger before. It's shrunk to fit the available space. If I move it back here, it gets bigger again.
You have to sacrifice goats to get that to work.
Sacrifice which?
Goats.
No, I think he said.
The image,
I missed the joke.
the image resizing, is that like using a different defined image, so it's actually
No.
not having to download the large image?
No, we don't have real responsive images yet. We're talking about integrating the picture module, which is backported from Drupal 8. We haven't done it yet. So here it's just resizing it. It's loading the full image and resizing it based on the ratio. In the Wysiwyg, we do have a feature that will resize it on the server side. I'll show you that a little bit later. But yeah, so I clicked save. This page is already live. Oh, and quickly show you the responsive. Hang on, I did that not quite how I wanted to. Okay, so you can see the menu items at the top have already become, big finger press buttons. Is like the tablet version. Actually, this looks exactly like the demo that Larry did earlier because this is the exact same theme that's in Drupal 8. Come on, aren't you resizing? And if we shrink it further, it'll eventually, oops, here's a bug in responsive RTK I've been meaning to file an issue about. Anyway, we resize it further and it's dropped from a 2-column to a single column layout and put the menu items back in there. And all of the layouts that are included with Panopoly are responsive. Search. So the built-in Drupal search that comes with Drupal 7 core was designed to run on as many platforms as possible, including like $5 a month hosting. It wasn't designed to be especially featureful or especially performant. So Panopoly replaces all of the built-in Drupal search functionality with a suite of modules called Search API, which gives you, faceted search out of the box. By default, it works off of the database search. But if you wanted to, if you had really serious search requirements, it's easy to swap out the backend for Apache Solr, a real search engine. And like all things in Panopoly, this is in a specific feature module, the Panopoly search module. So if you didn't want these search customizations, you could just disable the module. Or if you didn't want your distribution to include them, just don't put it in your distribution. Each of the features come with their own makefile. So like if you don't include it in your distribution's makefile, its dependencies won't even be downloaded. So it won't even get Search API and all the stuff it needs to work. Wysiwyg. So whether or not Wysiwyg is actually a good idea, users love it, users expect it, and it's going to be in core in Drupal 8. In Drupal 7, it's relatively easy to just enable Wysiwyg so that it appears on your site, but there's a plethora of technical problems you encounter in practice. The first one is which of these buttons to give users. There's 100 options. It's just clicking a checkbox to turn it on, but some of them are a terrible idea. For example, letting them change the font. Your client will put everything in Comic Sans. It'll totally throw all of the work you put into designing the theme and choosing the fonts and just ruin the site. Font size. They'll make one line be 52 points, another line be 50 points, no consistency. Of course, you want them to use heading tags rather than font size anyway. So a whole bunch of thought needs to be put into restricting what buttons they have. But just because the button isn't there doesn't mean that they can't put it into the editor. If you copy and paste something from another website, or Word or whatever, it will put it in the Wysiwyg, even if the button's not available. So you also have to set up all of these filter rules to remove the things that you don't want there. And beyond filtering for control, you also have to filter for security. There's HTML, mainly the iframe tag and the script tag that attackers could put in there to spy on your users or steal their personal information. And then, beyond that, there are a couple of things that users expect which aren't included in Wysiwyg out of the box, which you need to download other modules and configure and set up. So we'll take a look at Panopoly's Wysiwyg. So the first thing you'll notice, there's one row of buttons, just the simple things. And you click this one to get the more advanced things. So you don't overwhelm them with a bazillion buttons. We'll try media, since that's one of the more difficult things to set up right in Drupal. I'm going to add an image. Set some alt text. You're able to choose one of the image styles of the image that you want to insert. We'll just use the original size. So, and then here, we use the image resize filter module, which allows you to resize images in the Wysiwyg editor. And here, it will serve you a resized image. It'll resize it on the server side and then serve you that. Save bandwidth. If you have images, you've got to have image captions. This is another extension to the Wysiwyg. We'll float it to the right. The particular module that we use for image captions allows you to continue to edit the caption in the Wysiwyg, which I think is kind of cool. Not all of the caption modules for Drupal will allow you to do that. You know, some users have trouble with links. Like just going to a page, copying the URL and putting it in there. They don't know what a URL is. It totally throws them off. We include the link it module, which allows them to type some keywords. There's some pages I know that are on this site. Just pick one, click insert, links are done. So, you know, why set up Wysiwyg by scratch on each new site that you build when you can just, you know, grab Panopoly Wysiwyg and use it? While we're in here, let's take a look at the content editing experience. I'm going to jump to a new node. Yeah, and actually, like I was saying before, this toolbar module is the navbar module in Drupal 7, which is a backport of Drupal 8's toolbar module. So it works great under mobile. It's way more accessible than any of the other toolbar modules out there, and it's what we're going to have in Drupal 8. So, yeah.
All right, something that you just said, well, instead of creating it from scratch, why not go and grab Panopoly Wysiwyg module?
Mm-hmm.
If this is a, what do you call it?
Distribution.
Distribution, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just grab the Panopoly Wysiwyg, or do you
Absolutely.
have to grab a whole distribution?
No, you can grab just the Panopoly Wysiwyg module and enable it on any Drupal site. We've put a lot of work into making sure that there are no more dependencies between the modules than there have to be. There are some we couldn't avoid, but for the most part, you can just grab one module or two modules and put them on your site. So there's like a module with admin improvements. There's a module with the page improvements.
So there's a deployment that has all of them, or you could grab
Yep.
the modules individually.
Yep. So
Okay, all right, I got it.
a bit back, I was saying, you know, it's a distribution that you could install as a blank slate, you know, as a replacement for Drupal 7. There's, like we're talking about, you know, modules that are independently useful, and then you can use it to build your own distribution. Those are the three primary use cases.
Okay.
If you disable the Wysiwyg, which I know is strange, but if you do that, how much does it break?
It'll just make there be no Wysiwyg.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You mentioned several things that are like Drupal 8. I was just curious, is this built upon that other version of Drupal where it's not Drupal 7, not Drupal 8?
Are you thinking of Spark?
What is it?
Are you thinking of Spark?
No.
This project?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're thinking of Backdrop?
That's exactly what
No. This is built on standard Drupal 7. I don't think the Backdrop code base is stable enough yet to build real things with it. You know, we've been talking a ton about Drupal 8 today. Drupal 8 is still quite a ways out. You know, Drupal 7 at this moment in time is at like the height of its productivity. You can build more faster with Drupal 7 than you could like any time in its history. You know, Drupal 8, you're still looking at like a year or two before you'll be productive. So Panopoly gives you, you know, some bits of Drupal 8 today. I mean, you could use this in production. Lots of people do.
When Drupal 8 does happen, is it going to be more or less difficult to change this, to migrate a site from Panopoly to Drupal 8? Compared to a Drupal 7 site that you just added other modules to?
I don't think it will be any more difficult. I mean, Migrations from 7 to 8 are going to be a lot different than they have been in the past. You know, there will be like, we won't have a version of Panopoly as soon as Drupal 8 comes out, I don't think. There's still a whole lot of unsolved problems with like how panels is going to look in Drupal 8 and other stuff. So you won't get like some of our customizations, but you totally could go from like Panopoly in Drupal 7 to something in Drupal 8, and either you live without you know, some of the customizations we do, or you choose an alternate approach, or help us port it to Drupal 8. That would be awesome. So if you remember from the keynote, the Drupal 8 node add page goes into a similar 2-column layout like we have here. Who has never seen the Drupal 7 like create content page? So we've all seen that? Awesome. Okay. So it goes from the 1-column thing to a 2-column here. You know, we've really tried to remove unimportant or confusing things to just get this page down to the bare minimum of what you need. For example, we don't have the promote to front page checkbox, you know, under publishing options, because that checkbox only ever actually works if you don't customize the front page, if you leave the default front page. But everybody customizes the default front page. So now all of your users, for the rest of the time on your site, are stuck with a useless checkbox, just to confuse them, to throw them off. You know, maybe try it, nothing happens.
Talking about the promote to homepage.
Yeah, yeah.
You also disabled the make sticky.
Yep, got rid of the sticky at top of lists.
We've had times when we need to undisable it.
So what I would recommend if you wanted to implement something like that would be to use the flag module. But you totally could undisable the sticky at top of lists if you wanted to.
It's not setting a variable.
You know, I don't think we have a variable for that. If it's really important to you, you should totally make an issue in the issue queue, and we could add like a screen for it. You could bring it back in a custom module if you wanted, because all it's doing is setting the access attribute to false. So it's like it's still there, we just don't see it. This particular customization is done by the Panopoly admin module. So if you thought this was stupid, you could just disable it and then, you know, use the rest of the stuff. Another checkbox we took away is the published checkbox, which makes sense to developers because it's a flag, right, Boolean on or off, but confuses users. Instead, we replace it with the save draft module, which gives us a publish or save as draft button. What else did I want to say about this page? So we put a lot of thought into adjusting the size and position of different elements on the page for importance. So like the title is big and at the top, like a title should be. Below that, you can see, you know, the URL that the page will appear at, which is still important. So it's at the top, but it's super tiny, so it doesn't distract you. And also, this page, the node add edit page in Panopoly, is a panel. So if you wanted to change the way this is, move things around, make it be 3 columns instead of 2 columns, you can totally customize that for your users, for your distribution. So landing pages. Drupal does an awesome job at content. You know, creating new content types, putting fields on them, creating a whole bunch of those. Like, that's Drupal's bread and butter. If we wanted to make a content type that represented presentation, you know, give it a title, give it a description, make a URL to the slides, a date field with the date and time, and then create 100 presentations and make some views and mash that all up. Like, Drupal rocks at that. What Drupal does less good at least, you know, out of the box with core, is unique one-off landing pages. And there's a couple of solutions for that in Contrib. You could maybe do it with you know, beans and context, or panels is one of the solutions to, you know, those landing pages. But normally in panels, to create those pages, you're still stuck with the page manager. And the golden rule is that users should never see that. It's way too hard, way too confusing. So Panopoly has added a pseudo content type. It's not a real content type, but you still go to the add content page and find it here. So users still use a workflow they're familiar with when they want to add a landing page. They go to the same place they go to add content. Click Create Page. Behind the scenes, this is actually creating a normal panels panel, but rather than taking us to the page manager, it takes us straight to the page so we can start editing it in the IPE. So first, let's give it a layout, put a sidebar. Everybody loves a sidebar. And users can click Customize this page, then click this little plus guy, and get a menu of things they can add. Really basic stuff, like stuff that any internet literate person would understand. So add links, add file, add an image. There's probably 100 ways to add an image to just one arbitrary page in Drupal, and all of them are crazy complicated, right? Like if you were going to do that with blocks, you'd have to go to like admin, structure, blocks. You'd have to put a block in a region. Of course, you don't know where that region is. You just have the name, right? So you put it in one of those regions, you create it, put in your stuff, set a visibility rule, say it only appears on this URL, click Save, and then have to go all the way back to the front end to see, like, did anything happen? Did that work? But in Panopoly, just come here and click Add Image, add an image. But we're going to step it up. For this presentation, we're going to add a video.
Did you guys ever consider adding like a carousel or a film strip since they're so popular?
There is a carousel widget. We call it Spotlight. Sort of confusing name, but I'll demo that in a moment. Go to my page. Should have had a link ready. Please forgive the slow internet, but we will.
Even a Drupal camp, after we do kill internet. Everywhere.
Drupal camp is where internet goes to die.
Yeah.
So we can put the.
You could sell that to internet providers. You want to test your network? Provide for a Drupal camp account.
Bandwidth testing. Load testing. Okay, so this is the media module that allows you to do this. You can put in the URL or even the embed code. Both work fine. I submit the image. I hope it's not playing this video in the background. Yes, it is. Where are you going? Yeah. Wait for it. Come on. So this is really cool when it works. Okay, so the video is there, and it immediately appears in the live preview on the right. Any of the settings we change over here have immediate effect in the live preview. And it'll probably take a second to reload that YouTube embed widget because of slow internet. Say we want to make the title a link. We'll change it to Google because everybody loves Google. And immediately, it's a link to Google. Make this reusable.
What is reusable?
I will show you in a moment. And you can, drag it over to the sidebar. Now your YouTube video is smaller to fit in the sidebar.
So, because I'm new at this, and this is probably a really dumb question, is there, at this point, there's no reason to use blocks in regions, right? I mean, you guys are trying to move away from that into panels because it's much more of a real-time view of what you're editing, and it's much simpler to drag and drop.
Right. So there are sometimes still uses for blocks, and anything that's a block can actually be made to appear in that ad screen for users to choose from. So if you have some module that makes a block, you can still use it. Like you're not stuck. But there are still uses for blocks. Frequently when I'm building sites, is I still use blocks for the stuff that appears in the header and the footer of the site, and then just use panels for everything in the middle. There's also a module called Panels Everywhere, which allows you to do even the header and the footer and the whole site layout in panels.
Why do you still use blocks in the header and the footer?
It's simple. Like, I don't need anyone to change what's in the header and the footer. Like, there's no reason to add the complication of panels. But, like, there's lots of developers who go the other way.
A load? Like, is there a difference in terms of performance between panels and blocks? I mean, is that one of your...
I think there's probably a difference in performance. Blocks are super simple. Panels have all these other features and stuff.
Blocks do a lot of weird stuff. They're always loaded no matter what. Even if you're not good with P1. So in practice, the difference may be less.
Yeah. I mean, like with the header and the footer, I kind of do want them to appear always. There's a lot of approaches. Like the guys at Calamuna, who do a lot of Panopoly stuff. They have a Panopoly theme, a base theme called Kala theme, and they actually advocate creating the header and the footer entirely in the theme in HTML, rather than using the block system or panels. Open Atrium, which is based on Panopoly, takes a different approach. They create a mini panel, which is like a panel that can contain other panels, and use the theme to inject that in the header and the footer. So it's still in panels, but doesn't require panels everywhere. I don't know, there's a lot of different approaches for doing the header and the footer. I don't think there's really one.
I guess I'm still not understanding, like, why would you pick a block in the header and footer over a panel? Is it performance? Is it
It's just simple.
security? Is it so implementation is easier?
Yeah,
That's basically it.
Basically, for me, but like I'm saying, there isn't one right answer to that question. And that's just me, right? Like, there's lots of other people who build production
Well,
sites.
I don't know
with
any of this because I'm totally new at this. So I'm just asking because I'm trying to get an understanding of, like, what are the pros and cons of using one over the other.
I kind of think the idea is that for the header and the footer, you expect those to be consistent across the entire website.
And never
the
change.
Panopoly's, but the rest of the page on the website, you might want a different layout for one page versus another, and then Panopoly gives you a quick way of varying the layout everywhere except on the header and footer. For the header and footer, since it's consistent across the website, it's kind of simpler to set that up and segregate it from the panels magic by using the blocks.
But if you put a panel in the header and the footer and made it reusable across all your pages, wouldn't it? Or
Yeah, no,
websites, wouldn't it?
it's the same difference. Like I said, lots of people do it that way. And I just have my personal preference.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm questioning your decision. I'm really just trying to understand, like, what the pros and cons are. Like, there's got to be a benefit, and that's why you choose one over the other. And so, is it as a developer, it's just easier for a developer to use?
It's easier. I don't have to enable any additional modules or do anything special. Like, if I wanted to do panels everywhere to do it, I have to install panels everywhere. If I wanted to do it with a mini panel, I'd have to code that up. If I wanted to do it in a theme, I'd have to edit my theme. I don't know. It's the path of least resistance.
Well, that's good to know.
Question and then a comment to that. Does panels everywhere work pretty well with Panopoly?
It will work with Panopoly. If you
Okay.
find problems, it's a bug, and tell us an issue queue. It just doesn't seem to be the most common approach.
Yeah.
Like the biggest distributions based on Panopoly don't use it,
Sure.
and we support it. But
So to this question here, I do it all different ways, but I could code my header footer in a template and then use Panopoly or panels for all the content section. But then I get the request from the client that they want to be able to change this or that in the header. Well, they don't know how to edit template code, so now it's kind of not so great. So where another solution then is to use panels everywhere and build the header and footer in panel system, which is easier and quicker for you to change, right? Because you can click in and, move this thing over here, or change the style, or add a new piece of content into that header pane. That works. I like the idea of just creating a header region, kind of a faux panels everywhere, because your site owners always want to do things that you don't think they're ever going to want to do.
yeah, like put an image that only appears on one page in one spot.
I mean, the big win with panels everywhere is that you can have a completely different page template for some other page. Complete new design for a landing page.
So, in the content page is the thing that those buttons customize this page and change this layout. It's changing, right?
Well, so in this case, this page, like, it doesn't tell you anywhere, but this is a panel, and so we're editing this panel. You can also do this on node view pages. The panelizer module allows you to make node output come through panels. So, like, this is a landing page, but we could also be doing this on a content page and moving around all of the information there.
Okay.
Was that your question?
I'm just wondering where you get those buttons and where you don't get those buttons.
So it's up to the person who built the site or built the distribution. You can put them, there's a lot of places you can put them. So it's if you created a content type for your client and you didn't want them to be able to customize it, you would not enable the IPE for that content type. Or if you wanted to create a static panels page somewhere that you created and you don't want them to touch it, you could disable them being able to use the IP.
Okay, thanks.
So to the question earlier about reusable, now if I go to here, we'll have this reusable content tab, and if I add that, it starts out with all of the settings that I had previously. So I've created this reusable widget, and this is something for your users. This is something your users can use to create reusable widgets and put it around. You wouldn't do that, right, as the site builder or the developer. This is for them.
So this is something unique to Panopoly with panels?
Yeah, so Panopoly actually doesn't do a whole lot of stuff on its own. It's mostly pulling in like the best of Contrib and configuring it in a certain way. So this reusable stuff comes from some panels edition somewhere. I can't recall
But
specifically.
if you were just to use a Drupal Core 7, would you have that same functionality?
No, blocks in Drupal core can only be placed one time. So you would not. I mean, I guess if you use like beams, is there a reusable thing in beams? Will, do you know? I know you use beams. Like if you made a beam, could you like reuse it?
Yeah, I think you
Okay, is
can.
that part of the
So, look,
Anyway,
on the campsite, we actually implemented that beams are referenced by the page, so they're actually field displays. So they're not, it's not a block in the region, it's a block that's referenced as a field consumption.
That's what I'm sorry, I don't know what it is. I mean, I know what it is.
It's a block.
But I don't know what that kind of
it's a module that extends blocks to do, because out of the box, Drupal 7 cannot do that. Blocks can only be placed once. So yeah, on my demo homepage here, I actually don't want a video. I'll do a slider, since there was a request for slider. We call it Spotlight, which is actually a really confusing name. But usability, we'll change it later. So as I'm configuring this, you'll see it start to appear in the live preview. There's the first slide. Which one? We'll take one of the ones with me with long hair. And as you can see, it's already here in the live preview, both slides. Let's put something in the sidebar. We'll add a list of content. So this widget is actually a view. And all of the settings you have on the left are view settings. And when you're creating the view for your users, for your clients, for your distribution, you can choose which of these you want to be configurable by users on this settings page. So like, I can change this view from a fields view to a content view. And now I have the teasers, switch them to full node view, switch back to fields. Let's say, I don't want that stuff. Add the image back, that looks nice. Say we want 4 items instead of 3. This content type select box, that is actually the exposed filter on this view. So anything you put into the exposed filter on your view that you're creating as a widget for people to reuse will appear there. So this is already kind of starting to look like a site front page. And we just, messed around for a couple of minutes. And yeah, like I was saying earlier, this is a panel, so we get just this save and cancel button. If you were editing a node, you would get a save as custom and a save for all nodes of this type button. So you could rearrange just a single node on the entire site and do something weird there, which clients always ask for, even though it's a terrible idea. Or you could rearrange it and have it affect all the content on the site.
Actually, for one kind of project, we used Panopoly, and a lot of our conversations were about the need to lock it down because our designer especially was afraid there for the client, if you gave them that much power, it was just going to do a bunch of
Well, the great thing is that you can control who has access to the IP by just normal permissions and roles, right? So you could say that the site manager can mess with this, but not like normal users who have an account. Or you could give it to users with an account, because you can just select just a safe palette of things that you allow them to do, and they can use it to create like their personal dashboard or something. You know, they can throw like a weather widget and a thing over here, whatever they want, configure it to their heart's content. And to the design question,
Pane locking is another cool piece of that.
pane locking?
Yeah, you can lock a pane in one place.
I don't think I've ever used that functionality. It must be one of the giant things on the gear icon in the page manager that I can
Yeah, so like if you want your slideshow to always be at the top, but they can move other stuff underneath it. You can lock the slideshow and they can move the other pieces.
Sweet, sweet. Yeah, 'cause we're using the IP for everything in here because that's the experience we want users and site managers to have. But if you, God forbid, want to use the page manager, you still can to access, some of the advanced stuff like locking panes and visibility rules and variants.
Through here. I've seen Earl do it through the IP as well.
We don't have a context enabled. I think that might be how you get there. No?
But it doesn't matter.
I don't know the magic incantation. I'm not Merlin. So to the design question, each pane also gets this little paintbrush guy to choose what style you want the pane to have. These three options come from the Panopoly demo module. They all look terrible, but the idea is that you provide a palette of style things that your users can use in a custom module, in your theme. There's even a way, like if you can't write code, the stylizer module will let you create these styles just through a point-and-click interface. But the point is, you provide them with a palette of things they can do so they feel good, they have some control, but it's only a set of things that you know will look good in the design of your site, or for your distribution, or for your theme, however you want to do it. And yeah, remember, Panopoly is a blank slate. It's a base. So all of this stuff is just basic internet stuff like map, table, things that you want like out of the box. But for your users, for your clients, for your distribution, you can put whatever you want in there, things that you know they will need. Like if you're making a distribution for musician websites, you can have add a discography button or add an audio player button. So this is a tool also for you to create really cool things in here that your clients can use. And most of the things are fieldable panel panes or views. And you can take all that stuff and throw it into a feature. Yeah, let's return to the slides. So, Panopoly guides distribution development. I think, it's cool as a blank slate, as a better starter, but I think it really, really shines for making your own distribution. If you want to do that, Panopoly has got you. Low-level stuff like how to do your makefile, best practices, how to handle demo data, all that stuff at the low level. But I think the more important thing is the higher level. It provides a framework for you to create custom specialized things for your client or your distribution, and then allow the user to customize it further in a safe way with this type of UX. So let's do a really quick thought exercise. This screenshot comes from Open Academy, which is a distribution for creating university department websites. They have a content type called course, as fields like name, course number of credits, when it happens, like Monday and Wednesday at 9. So users can create courses, and then they provide this course view where they can see a list of all the courses. So Open Academy is actually based on Panopoly, but forget that for the moment. Pretend that this is a standard Drupal site. If someone downloaded this distribution, built their university department website, and said, hey, I want to put some text up there that says like, or if you want to audit all of our courses, contact this person via email. How would you add that to a standard Drupal site? Yeah, you could edit the view and then add some custom text to the header area. That assumes, first of all, that the user knows that this is a view. knows what that means and how to get to the edit page. Once they get there, knows how to work with it. It's a kind of specialized system. It's got its own set of terms, its own interface, and then adds that there. But it's doable, right? Like they could do it. What if instead they wanted to add a video there, or is showing their students like smiling and thumbs up and then, hey, come take our courses. It really starts to break down pretty quickly. So rather than providing this as a view page, provide it as a view content pane. And with whatever settings you need, and then make this be a panel page so the user can, in Panopoly, come click, customize this page and throw whatever the hell they want in there. If they want to remove a column from this table, let's just click the settings thing. They've got the list of the fields, uncheck it. So you are creating very specific, single-purpose things for your clients, for your users, for the users of your distribution. And Panopoly if you fit it into the Panopoly framework, there's a way for them to customize it. And as a site builder, you can create those things just as views, as fieldable panel panes. But even as a developer, if you're creating something entirely custom, rather than making that be a page callback, make that be a content pane in views. Have your custom code spit whatever it needs to spit out. You can provide your own settings page, which comes when they click on that same gear. They don't have to dig around in the admin for wherever you put the settings. They deal with every piece of content as if it were the same thing. Doesn't matter if it's a view or a custom code or a fieldable panel pane or whatever. It's this usability framework for the users of your specific thing to customize it. So that's the most advanced use case, I guess, building a distribution. Here are some distributions built on Panopoly. Some of these we talked about earlier. Actually, I should give the aside since Brantwin is around. Demo framework actually only uses a component or two from Panopoly, not the whole thing, but that's a totally valid use of Panopoly. Open Church for building church websites, Restaurant for building restaurant websites, Push Tape for musician websites, although their public release still isn't Panopoly, their Git is though. MVP Creator, it's a pet project of mine for building startup MVPs. These two end examples are kind of interesting. The Canadian government created an internal distribution to make all of their websites and then released it open source. I have no idea if it's actually useful for anyone who isn't the Canadian government. Same for the Arizona State one. But it's really cool to have those examples to look at, to see what they did. If you want to create your own internal distribution for some reason. So yeah, I had a section at the end which was advanced developery stuff, the basics of actually starting to create your Panopoly-based distribution, but this is a beginnery session, so we'll skip over that. If you're interested in it, come talk to me later or grab that URL. It's the Panopoly documentation on how to create a distribution. The slides, by the way, are posted on the MidCamp site, so if you want any of my links, just grab the slides, you can get them. A couple of shout-outs right at the end. The lead maintainer, the original creator of Panopoly, is Matt Cheney, also co-founder of Pantheon Systems, who I'm supposed to announce is paying for drinks at the after party. So everyone come to the after party, free drinks, Panopoly, or Pantheon. The other co-maintainer, Tom Kirkpatrick, co-founder of System Seed, also maintainer of Open Academy. So it's not just me. We've got some other wizards. And we're a really active community project. Yeah?
Can you use Panopoly with Pantheon?
Absolutely. Yeah, you go to create a new site, you'll get like a list of what you want to start with. You just click Panopoly. We have a great community, contributing patches, reviewing patches, posting bugs, all that stuff. As maintainers, me, Matt, and Tom, we're mostly taking the great work from the community and integrating it into the product. So come join us, help us make it better. Oh, and I stole a lot of pictures from Matt Cheney's presentation at DrupalCon Portland. So,
how do we get your slides?
On the MidCamp website, if you go to my session, there'll be a link to this on Google Docs and also a PDF.
Thanks, Dave.